Introduction of GST. Why GST? Why GST? So these are some reasons: efficient, less bureaucracy, effective, self-policing, inbuilt cross-checking features, address weaknesses in sales tax and service tax, transparent. GST will be shown on tax invoice. Lately, there have been some announcements by our Prime Minister saying that a lot of people, they don't pay income tax, but yet they got the money to send their children to study overseas. A lot of them, they don't pay income tax, yet they got the money to buy Mercedes-Benz and bungalow. So there are a lot of loopholes in our tax system. Take note that at the moment, we have 1 million taxpayers. What's the population of Malaysia? 30 million. So you have a case whereby 1 million taxpayers subsidizing another 29 million Malaysian. So that is not, in that sense, a fair system. Whereas for GST, GST is on consumption, meaning whatever you buy, then there'll be a 6% charge. And if you don't feel like buying it, then you don't pay 6%, then don't buy it. So you have an option. The bad thing about the income tax is that the more you earn, the more you get taxed. So there's no incentive for me to work hard because I work so hard and I'm going to pay so much tax. Then what's the point? So in that sense, GST is more fair by virtue of GST is consumption tax. If you don't want to pay the 6%, then you have option not to buy the goods or services. So in that sense, GST is more fair. And also take note that our goods are fairly cheap because it's heavily subsidized by the government. Take note that a lot of people from Singapore, they come over to Malaysia and they spend things on restaurant, karaoke and all that, all as subsidized. And also over at Sabah Sarawak, East Malaysia, you have people from Philippines and Indonesia coming over as well to buy things because here is fairly cheap. So why are we subsidizing the people that are non-Malaysians? Now with GST, you come over, you buy petrol, you buy seafood or whatever, you got to pay 6%. So to me, it is more fair by virtue of number one, you don't have a case of 1 million Malaysians subsidizing 29 million other Malaysians. And also the case of whereby, why should we subsidize non-Malaysians, like for example, the people from Singapore, from likewise Indonesia, and also from Philippines. So now it is, in that sense, more fair. And the other part is, of course, look at not susceptible to economic downturn. The part whereby if income tax and there's an economic downturn, you find that the collection from income tax is very low, very low. But with GST, the track record from Singapore, Australia, UK, and so on, you find that GST will be going up. Averagely, GST collections will go up double every 10 years. Double every 10 years. Why is it going up so much? Number one, population-wise, we are growing. Number two, people are spending more. And you look at it as people are also earning more money. So that's why they have the capacity to spend. So the records from other countries like Singapore, Australia, and UK, you find that the GST collections double every 10 years. Double every 10 years. So in that sense, it is very good for the government. And people like us here, we are going to work for the government for free. We are the collecting agents. We collect from our customers, net off whatever is our input tax, balance we will pay to customs department. So in that sense, to the government, it's a very good tax. Okay, GST will be at 6%. Effective date, 1st of April 2015. What's the threshold? Threshold will be 500,000 turnover a year. So if your company is hitting 500,000 or more a year, you have to register for GST. So the cut-off here is at 500,000 turnover a year. And it will replace the sales tax and service tax. With coming on board GST, 1st of April 2015, there'll be no sales tax and there'll be no more service tax. So GST will replace both the sales tax and service tax. Let's look at the GST rate for other countries. Indonesia. Take note, Indonesia, we say a little bit more backward compared to Malaysia. But they started GST in 1984. 1984. That would be 30 years ago. Singapore started in 1994. That would be 20 years ago. So at the moment, ASEAN countries outside of Malaysia, there are only 2 countries without GST. And the 2 countries are namely Myanmar and Brunei. All the other countries, they have already implemented GST. Look at the rates. Like for example, Indonesia started with 10. Initial rate, current is at 10. Singapore started with 3. Singapore started with 3%. Then they went up to 4%. They went up to 5%. And now currently, they are at 7%. Philippines, 10. Now it's at 12. On average, most of the countries in ASEAN side will be at 10%. And you think 10% is a lot, look at the other countries. Denmark, 25%. So the European countries are actually having very high GST rates. Italy, 20%. UK, 17.5%. The question then is, we are going to start at 6%. My personal view, 6% probably will go to 8%. And 8% will go to 10%. Why 10%? Because most of the ASEAN countries will be at 10%. So merely by changing the tax rate from 6% to 10%, can you imagine how much the collections will be? So 6%, if you think it's high, it is just the beginning. Get prepared for the possibility, my personal view, it will go to 10% in a matter of time. Yeah? So these are some of the GST rates for the other countries.